All right, we will call Committee of the Whole to order. Without objection, I'm going to excuse the absence of Councilwoman Hamilton Steiner since, as you all know, she served on Charter Review Commission. She has recused herself from the conversation about the charter amendments, and since that is the bulk of tonight's conversation, she has opted out of abundance of caution not to attend. And then next, I will move to approve the minutes of the May 11th Committee of the Whole without the necessity of a reading.
So moved.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. Okay, so as indicated in my preamble, tonight we're talking charter amendments, potential charter amendments. We have already voted 2 out of committee favorably back to full council. Most of the ones remaining tonight have some tie-in to ranked choice voting, save for redistricting. So it really makes sense to start off with talking about ranked choice voting because our decision there may affect how we want to move forward with or not with the others. So as I'm sure you've all read my lengthy communication and in detail about how these are all interconnected. But so starting with the ranked choice voting one, we have, when Charter Review Commission's, the final report recommended, asked us to put an amendment on the ballot, potentially that would give council the option to adopt, if adopted by the voters, would give council the option to adopt ranked choice voting via ordinance or resolution. We had conversation about that in previous Committee of the Whole when we talked with the law department and looked at the opinion from the Legislative Services Center about whether or not that option, while I believe the Charter Review Commission intended that to be give council actually it said to give council the most flexibility. That was before SB 63 passed, and that legislative opinion would suggest that should council adopt by ordinance or resolution, that it would in fact trigger SB 63, which could threaten local funding. So that is why, but that language as essentially recommended by the Charter Review Commission, just so that we could compare apples to apples, is put forward in Ordinance 27/2026. And then because we had that opinion about that it would potentially be less risky if council wanted to move forward to have it ranked choice voting directly adopted by voters via charter amendment directly by the voters with, so Ordinance 21/2026 presents it that way with, and includes a severability clause that would make it null and void should essentially the language of SB 63 as well as, or if it would be found non-constitutional. So those are 2 potential ways to move forward. There are others. So one that is not drafted currently would be to essentially, again, go directly to the voters via charter amendment, but that it would not go into effect until SB 63 is repealed. So that would be kind of an option 3. So instead of saying it's severability, it would just not go into effect. And then option 4 would be to wait until after maybe the November election, which would allow us to see shifts in the legislative and legal landscape, more time for public dialogue and engagement prior to a charter vote. So those are 4 options as I see them about this this moment, and I'll pause there and allow council members to chime in. Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So first, thanks for putting so much work into all of these and for being clear and organized. Before talking about ranked choice voting, do you anticipate tonight that we're going to have time for some of the others on the agenda, or is tonight mostly about the first topic?
I think that depends how quickly we determine if this body has no interest in moving forward with anything at this time, then we can start working on the other ones, or we know how we know what we need to do with the other ones. If we want to contemplate one of what I'm going to call option 1 or 2 or 3, then we'll probably need to spend more time on that, because we won't know the other ones. For instance, the one about the elected position salaries has timing related to primary or not, so the language of that would be affected. This is all laid out in that extremely long communication, but several of the other ones, so what the specific language of those are would be affected by whether or not there's a primary, so that would potentially have implications on what we decide with ranked choice voting. That answers your question. The redistricting one is not necessarily connected, so if we have time to talk about that, we could move on to that as well.
So, and while I've got you, so the 4 options are?
I'd say option 1, ordinance 21/2026. That's the one that was where it would be adopted directly by the voters into the charter with the severability clause. Option 2 would be ordinance 27/2026 for a charter to allow council to adopt an ordinance resolution in the future if we wanted to. Which is what the Charter Review Commission recommended. But they recommended that before SB 63, and then after we had the Committee of the Whole, where we thought that may essentially automatically trigger SB 63. And then 3 would be, it's not drafted, but the idea being that it's adopted directly by charter should SB 63 be repealed, so it only goes into effect if that's repealed. Or option 4 is wait and look at this in the future.
And how are 1 and 3 different?
1 is it goes into effects, but the severability clause, and actually I might turn to the law department in this, but what I would understand is the severability clause, like it goes into effects, but the severability clause would negate it, whereas trigger law 1 would be it would not go into effect until SB 3 was repealed. So if voters said, yes, we want to do this, so if you think about this with some of the, like some states have the abortion law where if, that trigger laws, so it can't be in effect because it's in violation of, the Constitution.
Okay, so 1 and 3 are similar but with important differences.
Yes.
Similar concepts, but a little mechanical differences that we're talking about. Okay.
Other council members? Vice President Baker.
Yeah, first I want to say thank you, President Keppel, for spending a tremendous amount of time on the charter review things. It's very important, as we've talked about before. It's essentially our city constitution. It's the one thing that goes before all the voters, and so we have to think about what we want to make so it can't be changed very easily. So I appreciate the thought and care that's gone into it. As I've kind of gone down this journey of ranked choice voting, it's appealing to me for a lot of reasons. The one which I think is most persuasive to folks I talk to in the community is that a primary in September is very, the community typically doesn't know about it. It's typically an extremely low voter turnout, and it requires a lot of paperwork at a time when people just get back to school, other things are going on. So in a lot of ways, I saw ranked choice voting. I think it has a lot of positives beyond this, but I think it creates some simplicity in municipal elections, where you basically have an instant runoff and you have no need for a primary election. That said, and I like that Lakewood is progressive and that we're living our values. I do not want to use our budget that could go to paving roads and making new parks into defending litigation about ranked choice voting. Nor do I think any of these options are going to put us down that road. But I just, which is why we're taking such care with the different versions we have and the potential ones we can go with. In light of what the state's doing, and I don't know that it will change. And I guess so I'm legitimately weighing all these, and I don't know what to do. I think about what the Charter Commission originally proposed, which was before we have a lot of facts that we have, does leave it to council, essentially. It's a council action. Whereas our election process previously were charter-driven. That does potentially put us in a spot of a future council deciding that they want to take on that litigation risk. So we need to think about that. I would certainly fight vehemently against us taking on that litigation risk as a council person today. This charter will live with future councils, so it just won't be us. The trigger one is appealing, although that does set up some practicalities of like when exactly it's repealed and then its effective date, and then when it's, so I could see some problems just like on the ground and logistical about that. But it just makes me so darn mad that the state won't let us govern our own affairs, you know, as to how we elect our leaders. So I'm open to what my colleagues have to say about it. I'm kind of leaning towards what the charter review. I'm leaning towards what the charter review recommended, or nothing, is I think where I'm at, as I consider all these things. And I feel bad saying that, President Couple, because I know you spent a lot of time drafting a lot of different versions of this. It's important. It's very important. But I think that's where I'm at, because I don't want to put us in a situation where, you know, the charter requires something that the state repeals, and then we're kind of racing against time. Filing deadlines could have come and passed. Who knows what would have happened? And I come back to the, you know, I trust the voters of the city, and I trust who they put in these seats. So I trust that the future councils among us will act appropriately, or at least act with the wishes that the public has of them, which I think is a better way to put it. So that's where I'm in between doing nothing and doing what Charter Review Commission initially recommended, but can be persuaded on this issue, and thoughtful minds can disagree as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll just add that, I think the Charter Review Commission put a lot of time and thought into making this recommendation, but not knowing exactly how the sands would shift under our feet with that. So I just want to be clear about that, in that I would tend to agree with a lot of the points raised by them about how ranked choice voting as a tool, can lead to more civic dialogue rather than candidates attacking each other. We saw that in New York with the mayoral race there. It can lead to, by reducing, not having the primary, it can reduce costs both to the municipality and to candidates, which can allow for a more diverse group of candidates to run. It gives people the opportunity to obviously rank their choices so that, you don't have to think, oh, am I throwing my vote away on this candidate? That might be a long shot because you still got your choices. So I, as a concept, am a big supporter of ranked choice voting. Vice President Baker, don't feel bad about, I put these all together because I find it easier when we're talking about these things. If you say, do you support this? It's, what is this? Is this ranked choice voting as a concept? Is it this specific legislative strategy? What is it? So that's why I spent the time, out of mostly respect for all the time the Charter Review Commission put in, to make sure that we really have thoughtful dialogue about this. And because it does potentially, our decision affects not only the other charter amendments, but it also, as you mentioned, the potential for litigation. Other council members, Councilman Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with so much stuff that's been said from my colleagues up here to this point. I'm leaning slightly different than Councilman Baker, and more sort of amending the charter, putting it to the voters. Because you're right, I do trust our voters. This is an important moment in time, and I understand there's any number of risks on the table, but this is one of those moments where I completely agree. It's so aggravating that we're a home rule state and not allowed to, like municipalities are not allowed to act in that way. And this is, I feel that it's just kind of putting a foot down moment for me. And I'm happy to have this dialogue, but excited to see where this goes and interested to hear all my colleagues' opinions.
Thank you. Other council members? Councilmember Strubing?
Sure, thank you. Yes, I'm absolutely in agreement with ranked choice voting, and I don't know that frustration captures how I feel about this legislation that's coming out of the state. I can think of a couple other words that I'll be happy to share with you at another time. I think they've tied our hands again, and I can't see us moving forward with anything that could risk any of the financial aspects of this city. Having said that, I appreciate the efforts and the consideration, President Keppel, of putting processes in place so that if that was ever changed, that we could then act on that. But I think that this council could always then act on that. And I think that if we were to go forward with putting anything in place, they would just come after us again. And without the support of other cities or other organizations, and I'm hoping that there's going to be some national pressure somewhere from national organizations, but to go after this on our own, I don't know that that's wise.
Thank you, President Keppel, and thank you for all your legwork you did with this. You know, I too want to concur that I do see the value of ranked choice voting, and I think one of my favorite parts about it is it has the opportunity to increase voter engagement, voter turnout from multiple angles. One being by eliminating the need for multiple elections, you're therefore encouraging better turnout at your primary election or at your general election. And two being that, as some others have said, that because your vote will feel like it matters more, and there's less of this mindset that you're wasting a vote, that too should incentivize people to vote. So I like how it has multiple layers of encouraging higher voter turnout. And to your point, President Keppel, I also see real value in that it encourages more civil campaigning, and that's been borne out in other places where it's already in place. Where you know, because you know, if second is a viable outcome, then there's less of this inclination from politicians to, you know, go scorched earth and on an opponent. And so, you know, I see value all around for ranked choice voting. I don't know what the right solution is. I see the options that I see appeal in a variety of options, but I do also, at the end of the day, I realize that our assessment of risk is certainly a strong consideration here as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm a supporter of ranked choice voting, but I'd be lying if I said I knew what was the right option here right now.
Thank you. So, Councilman Bullock?
Thanks, Madam Chair. A couple thoughts. There's kind of the substance of ranked choice voting and the process that we're kind of stuck in right now. And I'm trying to like make a little chart for myself to organize my thoughts. So first of all, I want to thank and respect some members of the public who spent a lot of time with me afterwards, such that we turn off the lights ourselves. And that's Chris Bindle, Barb, I think it's Michelle, and then Dean, my friend, whom I also appointed to the Charter Commission, is a big believer and a very thoughtful discussant. So I respect your views and the time you're putting in to educate me. I also, it sounds like some of my colleagues feel very passionately about this, and I want to respect that. I guess I'd like to just share my thoughts without emotion or politics, just straight up. Here's kind of where my thinking is. First, of the arguments in favor of ranked choice voting, the two that seem strongest to me would be increased civility and if it bears out, increased voter turnout, I could see how that could be the case. Part of me wonders, is that for sure the known, like, will those sales pitches actually bear out? I would be hopeful, but I guess I'd like to study that a little bit more. I'm also a little C conservative or cautious about charter changes in the sense that what we're proposing is to introduce a process reform as part of the charter that could have side effects or unknown effects. And I remember term limits and similar process changes like biennial budgeting or zero-based budgeting or the line item veto. These were 1980s, 1990s process reforms. Some are voting, some are not, that were hoped to be silver bullets to fix problems with our entrenched political system. Worthy efforts, but I'm not sure that any one of them alone, has really worked. And term limits are notorious in kind of adding problems as many as you removed. So now I think that's a subjective argument that I'm putting forward. Others would argue right in the verse. So part of me wonders is, would we be introducing an unknown with good intentions that could then basically change the game theory of voting and have a sideways effect that we don't anticipate? And because we're talking about the charter, which is the highest table stakes or the highest ante possible, I advocate all the time for sustainability or different issues like safe walking to school. So for sure, I fight for the values that I believe in, and also I hear from my residents. So it's very legitimate for us to put forward, concepts and proposals that we believe in and we think would do good. The highest scrutiny, though, is the charter change, right? So part of what I'd like to see is more extensive support in the community about this pretty arcane process change. I know that there are respectful, thoughtful, well-read, a group of leaders in our community who put this forward, but I don't think that it's an issue that's come up when I'm talking to voters at the park or a block party or door knocking or something like that. They're worried about other things, not this one. Okay. Now that doesn't mean they couldn't, but I feel a little cautious about me recommending to all Lakewood voters that we should for sure change the charter. It would be a lower bar for me if it was an ordinance or a resolution, which, as others have pointed out, is precisely the avenue that the state has handcuffed us on. So I like Councilman Bickenstein, I don't have a solution there. But so, I also agree that we shouldn't be risking our budget. I think the severability, on paper would fix that. I'm cautious, though, about antagonizing or dancing on the line. I'm remembering my days as a minor league baseball clubhouse manager, and the batting coaches, when they'd get in a spat with the umpire would say, stay on that side of the line, and they would, but they'd put their toe over the line, and they would never put the foot down, but they would have fun with the umpire a little bit. Are we doing that as a city if we're, if we're engaging in this direct conflict? Now, the state should not be doing this, let's be clear, and also I think the state is getting into a partisan battle because of an Alaska outcome. This is a nonpartisan change, but it's become a partisan fight, and the political parties, in fairness, both political parties love to get into food fights, and this has now enveloped this issue as well. So there's that. So I'm also meandering a little bit. I guess there's a Board of Elections official here. I get one question would be, if we were to move into this territory, how might we be prepared with our county Board of Elections to be successful now or in the future is one question. To me, the biggest thing to get me to a strong yes would be if we have a little bit more community dialogue in a broader concentric circle than we've had the opportunity to do to date. So with respect to my colleagues and the citizens, I hope that's been a transparent and clear, if long-winded statement. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, so touching on that in terms of the community dialogue, I think is a key component here. So just thinking through, you know, a lot of what I end up doing is keeping trains running and making sure so as we keep communicating that the deadline for these, any of the amendments that we do want to put to voters for the November election is September 5th. So and as we discussed the last council meeting, we're planning to go on recess in August, which means we would need to have any of these amendments completed, the actual language done and passed by 2/3 of this body by the last meeting in July, or call a special meeting. Which may be challenging to do with everybody's schedules. So working backwards from that, we really don't have very many more meetings, because the next time we could have community of the whole, most likely wouldn't be till June 15th. And then we'd only have a few weeks to work on this. So just thinking backwards from that, the other thing is process-wise. So to Councilman Bullock's point about what would need to happen, so whatever amendments we put forward, I would expect that we would certainly want to work to make sure the public understands what those amendments do. But with this one, we have the extra level of potentially need to explain what ranked choice voting is. So to Councilman Bullock's point, you know, we may not have broad members of the public clamoring for ranked choice voting at this time, but they tell us about it in other ways, right? It's like they don't necessarily, a lot of members of the public don't realize that, I'm sure there's still plenty of people, the members of the public don't realize that the Supreme Court has gutted the Voting Rights Act, but they are sure going to care when their communities are affected, right? And that they won't necessarily know what the Voting Rights Act did or would do before it was passed, but we're certainly affected by that, and you know, their voice is being heard. So I don't think, you know, I wouldn't say that ranked choice voting is the silver bullet solution that will solve all of our problems, but it doesn't mean that we don't try to make things better. But it is a lift that a lot of folks don't know really what it is, how it works. You know, we've gone through how many meetings for this body to become more educated on it. And then there would be explaining the specific charter amendment. The other concern I have is with options 1, 2, or 3. Well, particularly if we go what the Charter Review Commission recommended, which was a sleek solution to try to work around. But if we were to put that on the ballot and then the voters adopt it, and then it's being their will to have ranked choice voting is being blocked by this body rather than by the State House, which is really the entity that is blocking their choice. So that could cause both confusion and frustration, and put us just right back where we would have to choose between listening to the will of the voters and threatening local funding, or threatening local funding. So it is a very unfortunate and extremely frustrating, and whatever word Councilwoman Streebig was thinking of, more than frustrating situation that the State House has put us in. So with that, I know we do have some members of the public that wanted to speak on this, so I want to make sure we have time to hear from them. Did any other council members want to comment on any more on this at this time?
Madam President?
Yes, Mayor George.
I just would like to ask if Director Perlotti of the Board of Elections could come up and talk a little bit. I think the information that he has I think would be very helpful for the public, for council members to understand what sort of implementation would look like from the Board of Elections. So he's with us here today.
Sure. Director Perlotti's entitled to his 5 minutes, so come on up. You push the button so it turns green and we can hear from you.
How's that? Great. Hello, I am Tony Perlotti, Director of the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections. Good evening. And I just want to make a few comments about ranked choice voting. The Board of Elections, Cuyahoga County Board of Elections, is not for or against ranked choice voting. We will try to conduct what is required of us. But I do want everyone to understand that Cuyahoga County, as well as the other 87 counties, don't conduct ranked choice elections now. We're not familiar with them, and our equipment, currently as is, can't conduct that election. So we need to get software updates, and our voting systems are certified systems. So the tabulation system, the scanners you use at the poll places, the ADA machines, what we use to lay out the ballot, tabulate the ballot, that's your election management system. That's certified equipment that needs to go through and be certified by the Secretary of State's office. Now in Cuyahoga, we use a product called Clear Ballot, and they do conduct ranked choice elections in other states. They just did recently go for a certification, and it looks like there may be the ability with this equipment that we could in the future implement. However, it would come with a cost because it's not something that's included, and we don't know what that cost is. So that would have to be purchased through the vendor, which that cost may be passed on to the municipality, as it would be the only one using that. There are a lot of unknowns with ranked choice voting. With current law and Secretary of State directives that would have to be answered, and those would have to be answered either through the legislature or through the Secretary of State's office, such as on election night, we post the unofficial results. Those don't include provisional ballots or valid post-election absentee ballots that we're able to count. Those get certified in the official certification, which is 21 days later. So my assumption is, when we certify 21 days later, what we would be certifying in a ranked choice is the first round results, not ultimately who had won. Because at that point, we would have all the ballots potentially that would be in play, the provisionals, the post-elections. Then we would have to engage on the process of eliminating and adding and going through that process. The state would need to answer for us, too. At what point do recounts come into that? Is it after we certify the first round, or is it anywhere later on? Things that we don't know that we can't answer. So we would have to get those things answered. The other thing that we would hope to have is a long runway to implement. So a little bit of chatter that we've heard from other communities is that you need a few years to get people educated up. So for example, in a multiple vote for, which Lakewood currently has for at-large, now you just pick the 3 individuals you want. In ranked choice, you actually have to pick who you want first, who you want second, who you want third. Our understanding is if you put all 3 as your first choice, that's an overvote. And so if you go to the polls on election day, your ballot will get kicked back and you can remake that. But if you vote that way and you send it in by mail, that contest won't count. So that person doesn't get another chance to do that. With extensive training, hopefully you get voters up to speed so they understand that. The other thing we would have to consider too is layout of the ballot. Ranked choice is a grid. We currently don't do that. We're required to put the instructions on the ballot for how you vote. So with a ranked choice ballot, if there was other items, and I go back I think to last year's Lakewood ballot, you'd have one ballot sheet that would handle the ranked choice contest that you would have, because it'd have those instructions. Then I think we have to go to a new sheet, a new side, and relist instructions on how to vote, for example, on the issue, because it has different rules. And so you need to be clear to the voters in that regard. The bigger the thing is, you could potentially push to a multi-page ballot more than we do, and there is a cost associated with that that gets passed on to Lakewood. And so we want to make sure that some of those things are known. I think that there is this ability to do things differently, but we don't know how to do these things at this point. We can't answer all those things because we need either legislative action or Secretary of State directive to help us get that clarity. And I think at the start it causes more confusion than not, but eventually they get it. And that's where that long runway of education on Lakewood, educating their voters how this works and how they'll be voting in 2 different ways, depending on whether it's a ranked choice or not, that needs to happen. So, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it and appreciate you being here.
Madam Chair, if I could ask a couple questions of Director Perlotti. Can you talk a little bit about the software and what would be needed to get the software, costs associated?
So for our software, we would have to reach out to Clear Ballot, our vendor, get pricing on what would it take to get the software to put on the main management system to be able to lay out the ballot, tabulate the ballot. Then also, what, if any, firmware changes would have to happen to the individual scanners, because the scanners have another piece of software that goes on to be able to read those ballot markings, because it would be laid out a little bit differently from your traditional pattern that we have now. So those were costs that the vendor, they haven't given us those costs. We would have to work with them to see what they are, as well as if there's anything that we would have to do results reporting wise to be able to report, I guess we could do who got the most votes and those types of things, but I don't understand, how, what other would have to happen. I don't know how you do that, because you are reporting, I think, different items, and I don't know how that would work. So we would have to get their clarity. They've, like I said, they do 1 or 2 jurisdictions, but not a lot.
And who would be responsible for paying those costs?
I believe we would pass those costs on to the municipality.
And then can you talk a little bit about how the ballot would be laid out? School board, is my understanding, would be is dictated through state law, so that would be separate from any sort of council, mayor, judge. Can you talk a little bit about how that would work?
Sure. So for and that's kind of where I tried to hit on a little bit about the layout of the ballot. So the state, the Secretary of State tells us the order in which the contests appear on the ballot, and that's how we have to present them. So, and it rotates through different years and how we do things through the Secretary of State's office. So you have to have the instructions for how you vote to the contest. So for a school board, it would have how it reads now. You have that first column where it gives you your instructions and how you vote that ballot, and then you have your contest that would apply to that. So then if you came across a ranked choice, which is a grid, we would start then on a new page, have a new set of instructions that would be laid out for how you mark your ballot in the ranked choice environment. So we would then have that page, and you'd have that contest, and then let's say that you go back then to an issue, you then may need to revert back another page, have the instructions again, and then have that contest there. So that was where, again, we would need clarity from the Secretary of State's office, but that, I think the intent is you have the instructions, then this is how you vote on it, and when that changes, you need to put new instructions, and then that, and then if it goes back again, because if you go from candidate to a different type of candidate selection method and then to issues, you need to clarify that. And I think that would happen on a fresh side of a sheet each time to not have confusion. I think that's the only way you could do it, as the instructions do take not the entirety, but most of the first column on the ballot. So that then can push, say, from, we call it a ballot sheet, ballot pages aside. So one sheet is 2 pages. It could go then from, for example, from a 1 sheet, 2 page to a 2 sheet, 3 page ballot. So then that extra sheet, then again, there's a cost with that. We use a third-party vendor to print, and then we get charged for each ballot sheet that we use. So we would need to have that to have less confusion for the voters by making sure that all the appropriate instructions are there to correspond with those contests that follow after it.
And my final question is, what happens to the ballots that someone doesn't fill out correctly? With your example, they don't rank or they forget to rank. What happens with those ballots?
It depends on if the voting is completed on election day or early in person versus voting by mail. When you use a ballot scanner early in person or at the polls on election day, you have what second chance voting is. And so this is where if you overvote, currently if you were to overvote a contest, you put that in, the machine will say you overvoted and it will tell you what the contest is, and then it asks you the question, do you want to accept the ballot as marked, or do you want it to be returned, to which then you can go soil your ballot and get a new ballot. So at the polls and early in person, you have that opportunity on the overvote. An undervote that just gets taken into the machine. It doesn't give the voter the opportunity to do that. In a vote by mail environment, there is no machine that the voter uses. It's our central count system down at the board. And so when we have a overvote that happens, that gets noted, and that then just gets removed from consideration in the tabulation. So if you have 5 things on the ballot, one thing is overvoted, the one item is not counted, the other 4 do get tabulated, and that's what we report. So in a ranked choice environment, I think if you don't mark everything, that would probably, I'm assuming, be an undervote, which would go through. But I think as soon as you put 2 marks in the same column, whether you want 2 people as your first choice, second choice, that now becomes an overvote because you can only have 1 indication in that column, so then that would not get counted. And I think what would take voters the longest is the vote for more than 1, where now you don't have to rank who you want on that vote for more than 1. If I like 3 of you equally, then I mark all of you. In that situation, you can't do that anymore. Who do I like the best? Who do I like second, third? Like in Lakewood, it's a vote for 3. You have to do that. If they happen to put 2 people in that first column or second column, that's an overvote. That won't count. So it's a matter of education, getting people to understand that. And there's nothing you can do, because once that ballot comes, we get it, we take it out of the identification envelope, we remove the stub, it's neutral, we don't know whose it is anymore, and then it goes in the scanner, and then at that point we know. So again, that's where the long runway, if you're going to do something like that, is to help educate people, especially since they may be flip-flopping between different contests that are laid out on the ballot.
Thank you. Any other questions from council members for Director Perlotti? Yep.
So thanks, Director Perlotti, for being here and for the detail. It's helpful to think this through. Sounds like there's a fair bit of complexity. I expect you're going to say no to the following, but if the county changed it countywide, would that make it more efficient and cheaper by the dozen, so to speak, or the county would not be able to affect all of the local elections? I think you're going to tell me.
So you, just for clarity, a Cuyahoga County charter, if that charter were to adopt ranked choice voting, then that cost, I think, would be borne across the jurisdictions that utilize it, and the county being countywide.
And they would that would apply to which? The challenge is probably only going to apply to county offices, but not local school districts, local courts, and municipal governments.
No, because like Lakewood, Cuyahoga County, the executive, the council, that's a charter government.
Okay.
So where the commissioners are statutory, they're charter.
Would it be a little less confusing in Lakewood's example if the at-large, which are pick your top 3, which is a good point you've raised that I didn't think about, were not pick 3 in one pool, but 3 separate seats that you'd vote for in a siloed manner, a little bit like for courts of common pleas, judges, you're voting for not a pool, but this seat, this seat, this seat, and then you have a zero-sum game for each of those different seats. That would then at least make the ballot complexity and the game theory of the voter's choice a little less involved, right?
Well, what I think in that scenario, those now become 3 separate contests in which candidates would have to submit petitions for a particular office. So where the common pleas judges, they are going with, a lot of those have a 1-day off commencement date. It would be the same thing. So let's say you had the 3 at large. If those are 3 contests, you are now submitting petition paperwork, we'll just say for at large A, and then people who want to run against that are doing that. They would not be able to run for at large B. That would be another separate filing with a different person, and maybe different candidates want to go. So it wouldn't be, you would have 3 distinct sets. There would be 3 different offices. It would be just as if you were voting for the wards, even though they would be elected at large amongst the whole city, but each one would be an independent contest that would have independent candidates, and a candidate wouldn't be able to apply for more than one of those offices.
What's interesting, and that doesn't exist today, but that your discussion prompted that thought. You know, and as far as one of the merits in favor of ranked choice voting is the potential to increase voter turnout. It sounds, though, that there's a risk that the complexity would be a barrier for some until there was a pretty significant investment and kind of acclimation period of several years, so that the overvote problem and the confusion doesn't become a barrier. I'm sure other jurisdictions have done it, but but these are things to think about. And you know, as just one more observation, I think the traditional notion that voters sit elections out because they're disaffected because all elected officials and all government is a negative thing. Why would I bother? I'm not sure that that's a factor for local municipal elections. Maybe I'm fooling myself, but that's typically for governor and higher office levels. The challenge for us to get voter turnout for the city is just, hey, pay attention. In general, I don't know that people are typically failing to vote in their municipal election because of disaffection. So I mean, it's a good sentiment, but I don't know. It seems as if we'd be adding complexity that we need to responsibly position ourselves to overcome if we were to have a new way of voting here. You know. So anyway, I appreciate the detail. I'm learning as we go here. I'm thinking out loud. That's probably a dangerous habit. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure the data actually bears out about the overvotes, but that's neither here nor there at this moment, since we haven't decided we're doing this. But I did want to ask Director Perlotti, in terms of actual data rather than what is the cost of adding a sheet to a ballot? What does each sheet cost?
I would have to get back to you with that actual cost.
And how much does a primary election cost?
So the way that we bill elections is on a precinct basis, and so it's $3,000 a precinct is what the general cost is. That then gets impacted by the participation rate in vote by mail, whereas we print a set amount of ballots for the polls. The vote by mail is printed on an ongoing, as requested basis. So that impacts, as well as our goal is to hire 4 poll workers per precinct. Depending on what the election is and how excited people are, it can either be difficult or easy to get that. And so, for example, this past May, I think we were only able to get 3.3 workers per precinct on average, so that brought down cost a little bit. So it all depends, but then in a better, this November, we'll probably be able to hit that mark. So there's some things like that that impact the cost. But on general, the formula that we go through, a Secretary of State's worksheet, it bears out to be like $3,000 per precinct.
And I should know this, but how many precincts are in Lakewood?
37,
my
my
colleague
homework,
says.
I could have known the answer to that.
But our longest serving council member just said 37, so I'm going to take him at his word for that. Okay. And so thank you. I don't have any other questions at this time. Do any other council members have questions for Director Perlardi before we get to hearing from residents? Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And I'll just add too, in terms of the conversation around runway, I just pulled up, I think they're slightly different just because they were drafted at different times, but Ordinance 21, 2026, which is the one with the, where it's adopted directly by charter, would not go into effect until the January 2029 election. So there's would be significant time. All right, so on this topic, let me, I don't have my sheet, but I can see people. So I'm assuming Chris Bindle would like to speak on this. Is that an accurate assumption? Come on up. Push your button so you're on.
All right, I didn't
Thank
realize
you.
it turned off. Thank you for making the point about the primary, because that was top of mind to me. So 37 precincts, around 3,000 each. We're looking north of $100,000 for a primary, unless I did my math wrong. So I somehow don't think that's going to overtake how much it is to print an extra page per ballot. I think we're pretty good on that. Likewise, talking about the added costs to upgrade the system and things like that, it'll be a big, maybe upfront cost, but again, if we're saving $100,000 from a primary every year or two, I think that'll help eat out that cost pretty quickly. As for not being familiar with ranked choice voting, I don't think that's a great excuse for us to not move forward and make progress. Like, let's educate ourselves and learn how to do these things if we think it's going to make things better. Also, there are other communities that have there are other places that do this, so we have plenty of people that we can ask how they run their elections. Let's not just say it's too difficult, we can't do it. Let's get the information. As far as errored ballots, there are errored ballots in every single election. That's not something that you're ever going to get rid of. Yeah, it might be slightly more confusing for people who are starting with these new ballots, but as far as having different instructions on one ballot, most of us have taken surveys, and on surveys, there's more than one way you have to answer a question. Each page or whatever or question gives you the explanation of how you're supposed to answer that question. People can do that. Is there going to be confusion? Maybe there will be, but there's confusion now. So you're not going to ever eliminate it. Again, it's not an excuse to avoid progress. As far as the certification goes, like the 21 days later, I don't think that's first round because, once again, we have places all over the country and the world who are doing this who give same night results like we do all other elections. So now, just like now, the elections we have, those are unofficial. So with ranked choice voting, you're still giving unofficial numbers that day, but they usually, like today, are still pretty accurate as once you add in all the other provisional ballots and things like that. So I don't think that's a good argument. Stepping back from that and going back to your conversation at the start, sorry, I have to look back on my notes because I was distracted by the other points. I appreciate you adding the options 3 and 4 as well. Those are good things to also consider. Going back to option 1, I think there was a little confusion in a conversation up there that, like, option 1 and 3 are not exactly the same, because option 1, if passed, we have ranked choice voting. It's not until the state amends the current law that we no longer have ranked choice voting. Now, as conversations have been had, that is a high probability to happen. That being said, we have the severability clause to protect us, but also that will bring a lot of discussion. I think if that were to happen, I think that would be a statewide discussion of, like, the state is specifically attacking this city because they want to have ranked choice voting. And I think that is a reasonable thing to do. We'll still be protected by the severability clause, but I think it's also important to show that we're standing up for what we believe in. That being said, I think if we are really scared about how that will play out, I think option 4, maybe giving us some more time, seeing how things play out in November, we can have further discussions. Do the education piece a lot more thoroughly. Right now, we've done some at, like, community events, but we do need to have some good forums to educate the public on what ranked choice voting is and what the impact will be in Lakewood. I think that is important and could really help us. As for option 2, personally, not a big fan. Not just because it will not work with SB 63, but also because it could confuse people. And no offense, I don't want this decision in the hand of council. It's supposed to be in the hand of the people. That's the whole point of having a charter review and having the people vote on these. It's not for you to make decisions how we vote. It's for the people to decide. So I'd prefer that we do one of those that actually puts it into our charter. Going back to option 1, if it does happen that they change the law after we pass it on the books, and for some reason there is litigation, whether we want to pursue it or whatever, we do have national partners that exist to help in those situations, and they are looking for those situations. I'm not saying we should be seeking to get into a legal fight. I don't want that, but I don't think that should be the only reason to avoid this. At one point, somebody said something about, who asked for this, and you brought up a bunch of people from the community into a charter review committee and asked them, what should we do? What should we change about the city? And they said that this was something that they were interested in. So you did ask someone, and they presented this idea. I think that covers pretty much what I had. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Dean Jackson, you want to come up? I'm assuming you. I don't have the sign-up sheet, but I'm assuming that knowing.
I'm as surprised to be here as anyone. Thank you so much, members of council, members of the administration, Director Perlotti. First, I'd like to congratulate the state of Ohio on yet another victory against home rule. I'm as frustrated as you are with the legislature in Columbus. I want to speak for myself as a member of the Charter Review Commission and say that when we made this recommendation, we were operating in the strategic context of SB 62 very much being debated, very much part of the conversation, not yet political fact. But the reason we made the recommendation to give this power to council through a charter amendment was because of this possibility of losing local funds. That was our tactic to try and circumvent that. I think if you went back and asked my colleagues, and I can't speak for them, but I'd encourage you to have your own private conversations with those of them you can contact. Many of them would say they're agnostic to the mechanism, and I certainly am agnostic to the mechanism by which we pursue this, or at least create a doorway through which we could pursue this in the future. The concern is having a path to see whether this is something the community wants, while also not losing local funds. And if it makes sense to wait for a better strategic environment, we have, by the grace of God, a competitive election in the state of Ohio this year, and perhaps we will have a new Secretary of State one way or the other. Things maybe look different in 2027. Likewise, if we wanted to pass something with a sort of escape hatch clause built into Councilman Baker's point, I think it would be really reasonable to build something like a 2-year runway, right? Like if this law is repealed, then Lakewood shall have shall institute ranked choice voting in the next presidential election, unless that's within 1 year, and then the next presidential election after that. You could, with elegant language and a little bit more time than I have right now, come up with a way to do that. There's ways to delay this tactically, I think. Nothing I heard from Director Perlotti was a no, right? There's an upfront investment in a software upgrade. There are some questions about ballot language, ballot format, some things about certification that need to get worked out with the Secretary of State. We can learn from other states. They, of course, don't have the same laws or election official manuals as we do, but there are ways they handle this. We're not operating in a total vacuum. It's certainly possible to certify your results in a timely manner, since other municipalities and states in the country manage to do it. These seem to me to be surmountable hurdles, and I'd certainly ask public officials and administrators not to make mountains out of molehills when they think about pursuing this, if it is something that we pursue. I just want to close real quickly with I'm going to quote our state senator, Nikki Antonio, who was initially of course, quite skeptical of ranked choice voting, but seems to have come around to it. She said that while she initially believes that our state wasn't ready for ranked choice voting, she's listened to her constituents who have made clear that this is the best option for them. And she's changing her previous vote in favor of SB 62 to stand with those who support ranked choice voting in her district and her state. And so what I ask is that we continue this conversation, keep our options open, not be too stuck in the way we do things now to make investments into doing things better in the future, and that we just continue to evaluate the political context as makes sense. But thank you so much for taking these conversations seriously and hearing out all of the perspectives today. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Dean. All right, Michelle Jackson.
Thank you, President Keppel, Council. I'm thrilled to see Tony Perlotti, I gotta say. That's to paraphrase Jay-Z songs, we got 99 problems in the county, but the Board of Elections ain't one. So you guys do a heroic job in safeguarding our elections, so thank you. I'm thrilled to be having this conversation because I actually did not know what was going to be talked about, but I felt that this was a time to be talking about the mechanics. And so I have a binder for you, President Keppel, and I wanted to just kind of address a couple of things that Director Perlotti brought up. As you all already know, all 88 counties in Ohio have machines that are RCV ready. As Director Perlotti said, we have clear ballot. And we are waiting for certification. There's something called the Election Assistance Commission, which is a federal agency that came out of a voting act that certifies any sort of software, machines, all that before they even get out to the states. So the software.
I'm sorry, Michelle. Can you speak more into the microphone?
I can.
Thank you.
The upgrade, the software upgrade, was actually certified by the EAS, the Election Assistance Commission, at the federal level on 11/19/25. So that's gone through that hurdle. That's what we need in Cuyahoga County. We need that upgrade software. The county occasionally has to upgrade anyway, so that's not something new, but there is a huge education piece with it. So that's done. On January of 2026, something called the Board of Voting Systems Examiners in the state of Ohio had on their agenda to start reviewing the clear ballot upgrade. Now, whether or not they got to it, we don't know because that's a closed meeting, but was on their agenda in January of this year because that is the next step, and of course it has to go through the state, but it has to go through this board first. As far as some costs go, I pulled from a recent election in Portland. They had their first RCV election in 2025, but again, I think and for those of you who don't know, I'm with Rank the Vote Ohio, and we were invited into this process through the Charter Review Commission. We did not come here to promote or advance it. We came to educate and to make friends. So Portland, we've always maintained at Rank the Vote Ohio that it is a multi-year process, that if it was passed yesterday, you're looking at 3-4 years down the road to have this happen. So no matter when it gets passed, there's going to be this lead time that has to happen. It's just built in. So President Keppel, I brought you like the budget impact for Portland in their first RCV election, and they started implementation in 2023 for 2025. And just to give you an example, for their additional ballot sheet in 2024 there was no cost. In 2025 it was $313,000. The cost of their upgrade, a one-time cost, was $225,000. So some of the costs in this budget you'll see were one time, and some would be ongoing. Some go up, some go down, but compare that to the cost of a primary. And our primaries, if I'm not mistaken, are countywide. And that my understanding, and Director Perlotti, please correct me, my understanding was that the county is responsible for the cost of all elections except for special elections, and that cost falls to the municipality. So this would be, to my understanding, all costs would be covered by the county. We have tons of examples. We have 52 municipalities who are using RCV, so we don't have to. We can, look at what they're doing. I know that our election boards are not allowed to collaborate with others, but they certainly can do research and have conversations. And so I think this will be helpful to you to just kind of see the cost in Portland. And also, which I really found, one of the biggest things I keep hearing about ranked choice voting is it takes forever to get results. Well, in Portland, the election day was 11/5. They had certified results 12/2, December 2nd. That's by law, they had to have certified results. So it is possible to do that. And yes, there are all these contingencies that we currently have now on our ballots, but it's a matter of education. There's a substantial amount in this budget for education, but again, it's heavy towards up through your first election, and then it kind of wanes off after that. And finally, I just wanted to I'm going to leave you guys with, I like this piece from Clear Ballot. That's the manufacturer of our voting machines. And I like it because it's really simple. It's written for voters and for election officials. So it doesn't have all it helps with this, it helps with that. It just says this is how it works. And I think that even for me as someone who's dealing with this every day, I like the layout, the explanation. In the case of Lakewood, you were talking about potentially a form of RCV that is proportional or multi-member districts, which would be your at-large. For your wards, it would be a different system. One other thing I'd like to say is that our machines currently, and I highlighted this, Clear Ballot machines, after the software upgrade, can produce a ballot with both RCV and non-RCV races. So that is important, and when you talk about cost. But it really should not cost a municipality. We don't pay for primaries unless you have a special election. But I could be wrong on that. So, Director Pilati, I know will correct me at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. Did we have anyone else who wished to speak on the ranked choice voting? Nope. Okay. All right. All right. We have just a few minutes left in Committee of the Whole. Any council members further comments on this specific topic before we look at some of the others? So thank you to everyone for your thoughtful comments and information. So as we said at the beginning of this committee meeting, we do have other charter amendments that are still before us in committee that are connected to our decision regarding ranked choice voting. The Ordinance 16-2026, which is the salaries of elected officials. Currently, that one, or the way it is currently written in the charter. I'm going to pull up my communication because I laid this all out. But so if we were to eliminate the primary, we would want to adjust the dates in there. I think the way it's drafted, it says from the filing deadline, so it would actually you could leave that filing deadline would shift if there isn't a primary. And then we also have the council appointment process. That's Ordinance 17-2026. So that one was the one where the Charter Review Commission looked at how council vacancies are filled and recommended codifying what we've essentially been doing the entire time since I've been on council, which is when we have a council vacancy that we put out a public call for applicants. Sometimes we narrow down that applicant pool and then do public interviews before that appointment. So they suggest that we codify that in the charter because currently the charter says council shall appoint, but there is no process laid out just to get some of those norms in place. As we've seen at the federal level in particular, but also in the states, that some things that we've thought could live on forever as norms have been taken advantage of, so codifying them can protect our democratic processes. And then we also have the ward redistricting, which is Ordinance 19-2026. Since we only have about 15 minutes, I thought maybe we could talk a little bit more about ward redistricting, since we talked about that previously in Committee of the Whole, and I think we reached a fair amount of consensus on how we wanted to adjust that. We just need to kind of tweak the language. Does that sound like a good plan? Councilman Bullock?
Madam President, so I'm going to my list of ordinance numbers here. So I'd be happy to support a motion tonight or soon on the process, the proposed charter amendment recommending that the council appointment process be codified in the manner that you described. That to me seems straightforward, non-controversial. So happy to support that whenever a vote's called. On the redistricting proposal, I think that's a good and responsible spirit and letter of the law. I do hear some of my colleagues who are concerned about district lines changing in a manner that then zones them out of their current seat. I don't have a solution for that and didn't attempt to craft one in between meetings. I did share language by email the last time that I feel pretty strongly about, which would be that you'd require any ward boundary to include the northern and the southern end of the city, rather than you could do 4 quadrants and then that would change the socioeconomics mix. So instead, what we'd be talking about is, if the language I'm suggesting were to be included, would be keeping more or less the same shape of the 4 wards, but you'd have the ability to update the eastern and western boundaries to then adjust for population, which I think was the spirit of the Charter Review Commission recommendation. So, and then I think you, Madam Chair, also had another mechanism for how that might be implemented, which might be something along the lines of they shall take effect unless council acts in X number of days. I'm very receptive to that. That might be fine or even better than what we have. So I remain supportive of that, but I guess I'd welcome any comments from colleagues about whether you see it as important or not to keep the northern and southern reaches of the community included in a given ward for socioeconomic mix.
Councilmember Strubing.
Thank you. So it is my understanding that these 3 that are linked depend on if we are going to move forward with ranked choice voting.
All of them except the redistricting.
Except for the redistricting. So I don't know if I'm prepared today to talk about the salary or the vacancy filling if we don't cross that bridge first. However, the redistricting I'm ready to discuss today. I have read through this thoroughly. I think it's excellent. I think the idea that City Council shall adopt the enacted divisions proposed by the Planning Commission does it for me. I don't know that I would appreciate the Planning Commission coming in and telling the voters that we are changing who you have chosen to represent you, but to allow the City Council then to review their recommendations and decide on that. I think that I'm ready to move forward with that one tonight. Thank you.
Vice President Baker.
Yes, I took the liberty of putting together what may be an amendment that would maybe affect, and Councilman Bullock, I understand your point about, we had discussion about the north-south, kind of we like it, but putting in the charter, I think, is maybe a little bit, that's where I think you get, and I didn't see your proposed language, so I apologize. But I think one way we could be able to affect the discussion is, and I can send this to the clerk's office as well and to my colleagues. I kind of did like a strike through and a bold addition language, which is to say to strike through in section 1, so delete City Council shall adopt and enact divisions proposed by the Planning Commission unless council specifically finds that such redivisions are not contiguous or compact or bounded by natural boundaries of street lines or do not provide for equal population distribution. And add, City Council shall place those divisions on the next docket at the regularly scheduled council meeting. If the City Council takes no actions or fails to decline to follow the suggestions within 90 days, the recommendation shall take effect as if City Council had adopted them by ordinance approved by the mayor. So I think that borrows the language from the civil service and salary recommendation provisions. So it's familiar with our charter, and it would, I think, keep some of those issues we talked about at our last meeting front of mind. So I'll make that motion to amend that ordinance 17.
Second. That's in section 2, right? So it maintains in section 1, so this is the redistricting, that the Planning Commission shall review and make, if necessary, appropriate redivisions as nearly equal in population as possible, each ward to be composed of contiguous and compact territory bounded by natural boundaries or street lines. And then Oh, actually, that's in section 1.
It's in section 1 of section 2.
Okay, section 1 of section 2. Yes, thank you. And then can you read that language again?
Gladly. City Council shall place those divisions on the next docket at the regularly scheduled council meeting. If City Council takes no action or fails to decline to follow the suggestions within 90 days, the recommendations shall take effect as if City Council had adopted them by ordinance approved by the mayor.
So we have a motion and a second on that amendment. Any further discussion? So as we discussed at the last committee of the whole meeting, we wanted to set in place a process for redistricting. Right now, the charter says there shall be 4 wards, but it doesn't say how they're drawn. And as we've seen, again, norms be eroded, we thought it was important to set an example of having a process that is driven by these best practices in terms of redistricting, but that the ultimate responsibility does come to the elected body as there's more accountability there. All right, any further discussion on that proposed amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye, and that motion passes. And then I'll go ahead and move to refer.
Madam Chair, I've got a motion.
Councilman
on that
Bowe.
same one. So I did send it to not all of council, but I just did send it all of council. I also included the law director and others. And so I have a motion. I just got to get the screen up to make sure I'm referring. So the language that would address the issue that I talked about would be inserted in new proposed 7.2.1.2 or 7.2I2. After nearly as equal in population as possible, the following language you'd insert shall include as part of its boundaries Lake Erie and the southern boundary of the city. I've got to find that on my own screen. I don't know if somebody's got the ability to project the right wording on this, but because I know we're doing it in this manner. So, okay, so the language, the proposal would be in new 7.2. So if you scroll down a little bit.
It's one is
Okay,
right?
7.2.1, correct. And then 2 below this, which is on screen. So you see the 2 is the first full paragraph on this page. After the language, it says as nearly equal in population as possible, right in the middle of the paragraph there. You'd say, comma, shall each include as part of its boundaries Lake Erie and the southern boundary of the city, comma, and then the language would continue as is written there. Meaning each ward would be composed of contiguous and compact, bounded by natural boundaries or street lines.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, section 1 is stricken, and section 2 is now section 1, and section 3 is now section 2, yes.
Yep, okay.
So does that mean the motion that I'm making needs to just refer to this paragraph 2 on screen rather than?
Because paragraph 2 is no paragraph
So
1.
that's the motion, and it would address the socioeconomic balance.
I think the clerk has another. Okay, thank you. So the correct version is in PDF, but not in Granicus. It's in what was docketed, but not in what we have in our software that we use up here. But what was docketed to the public is the correct version, but the version we have here. Maybe given that and that potential confusion and that we have 5 minutes left, we're going to have another committee of the whole yet to finish out our charter review commission or charter amendments. So I might suggest that we just pause here and come back to it when we're all looking at the same version and avoid any confusion. Is that possible?
That's agreeable. I guess I would say this is important enough to me that I'd condition my vote on it. And I know that there's a desire not to be too prescriptive in the charter, except that's exactly what we're doing with a lot of these proposals. So I'd not like to leave the possibility of you having affluent districts in the north and then you've got a city council that doesn't think of balance on the issues in the same way that we do today. So that's my view. Thanks.
So I guess so you have proposed two. Are you saying you want both of them, or you think they both would serve the same function?
No, one or the other. So
Okay.
I proposed the second because it's less. That was my motion, which I know didn't get a second. Not just the second.
I'm willing to consider it when we meet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so let's all consider that, and then when we come back, probably in June, to continue charter conversations, and please look over the other ones as well so that you're familiar with them and we can get this clear to our constituents what things we're going to be asking them to vote on in November. All right. So with that, we're about out of time. We have just a few minutes before full council, so without objection, Committee of the Whole is adjourned. Full council will begin in just 3 minutes, hopefully.
Hello, Mary. How's the pit going? Anything new
Hi there. Yes, very much.
Oh, that's so awesome. Short-term rentals. When people start complaining, then I'll know what it is. That's literally all I got.
She was going to volunteer this year, but we have so many things. It's the way you feel afterwards is why you like running, at least in my experience. Yeah, it was like, I saw, there were tons of people being taken off the course yesterday. I mean, we went to Playhouse Square later in the evening, and like, we got in the car, and it was 87 degrees. This is
All right, we will call the full meeting of council to order. If you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll now pause for a moment of silence. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Baker.
here.
Councilmember Bixenstein.
Here.
Councilmember Bullock.
Here.
Councilmember Evans.
Here.
President Keppel.
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton Steiner.
Here.
Councilmember Streebig.
Here.
Reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held May 4th, 2026.
Move to approve without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. Without objection, I'd like to move items 11 and 12 to the top. All right.
Item 11, communication from Mayor George regarding LGBTQIA+ Pride Month.
Mayor George.
Okay, good evening. I'm behind in getting my laptop up, so I will just say I am proud to yet again this year to introduce a resolution in support of Pride Month for the month of June, and then also have the Pride flag flown right here at City Hall. And again, this is something I've done for a number of years, and I'm proud to continue that tradition.
Thank you. Sorry, we're having a little, there we go, technical difficulty there. Okay. Yeah, let's, oh, there we go. All right. And I will first move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. And then I will see if Councilwoman Streebig would like to make some remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor George, for again bringing the Pride resolution to Lakewood City Council. Your leadership, when not many other mayors are brave enough to celebrate our diversity, is encouraging and appreciated. At this time in history, when the queer community is under attack, and specifically transgender children are repeatedly and maliciously attacked, it's comforting to know that we have an ally in you. Thank you for showing our city residents and public employees that being an ally means taking action and not just uttering words. I'd like to talk a little bit about being an ally today And I see we have members of PFLAG here and probably some folks from Colors Plus and the LGBT Center of Greater Cleveland and generally good citizens. Being an ally means understanding that the fight for equality is not just a queer issue, but a human rights issue. Our entire community suffers when anyone is made to feel unsafe or unseen for who they are or who they love. Being an ally means standing up to those who would joke about us or smear us when we're not there. In the lunchroom, on the ball fields, and at family gatherings, we're depending on you to take the risk and challenge archaic thinking. Being an ally means using the right pronouns, showing up outside of Pride events, and understanding that I have a wife and not a partner. Making mistakes, humbly apologizing, and committing to do better next time. And doing better next time. Ultimately, allyship is about making sure that every person does not just feel included, but that they belong, and accepting that their experiences and our opinions are just as worthy as yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from council members? Councilmember Hamilton Steiner.
Thank you, President Keppel, and thank you, Mayor George, for bringing this forward. And thank you, Councilperson Strebick, as always, for your advocacy and your voice and speaking and standing in your truth. History isn't something you look back at and say it was inevitable. It happens because people make decisions that are sometimes very impulsive and of the moment, but those moments are cumulative realities. This is a quote from Marsha P. Johnson. In a moment in time, history was made June 28, 1969, a moment which sparked a movement and eventually birthing what we know annually in June as Pride Month. And for those that are not super familiar with that particular date, that is known as the Stonewall Riots. History is oftentimes marked by these moments, a simple act of defiance, a spark of hope, a resistance to oppression. This is what history sometimes is. And at this moment in time, in this current period we find ourselves in, we will need these types of moments, moments of courage. Someone somehow will have to just act and push back against the continued assault on us all. Because an attack on the LGBTQIA community is an attack on us all. How many years has it taken people to realize that we are all brothers and sisters and human beings in the human race? Marsha P. Johnson.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Other council members? Okay. Vice President Baker.
Yeah, every year I want to thank the mayor and thank my colleagues. I'm always so proud that we do this every year here in Lakewood and fly the pride flag in front of City Hall, because it's city speech. It's our city saying, and typically it's a 7-0 vote with the mayor supporting it, that we want to recognize the folks that live in our community, and we want to let everyone know that that's what we stand for and these are our values. So happy to support it. Thank you for my colleagues and the mayor for bringing it up.
Thank you. Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Madam President. Thanks, Councilwoman Streebig, well said, and Mayor. Just to add a couple things. One is my kids go to school in Lakewood Public Schools, and they are very, don't blink an eye to all the diversity in our community in schools, because they've grown up here, everyone's been welcome, and that's it. So I think that's wonderful, because the younger generation gets it, is doing it well. And those of us who, maybe this is for those of us who are a little bit older, right, that we have to remind ourselves, and the kids are like, hey, let's just get on with sports on the playing field, or coloring, or doing a show in arts. Thank you to whoever brought the rainbow bracelet. My daughter will love it.
Thank you. Other council members? Councilmember Bixenstein.
Thank you, President Keppel. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, colleagues. I concur with Councilperson Bullock that when you watch our children, they certainly already have instilled in them a culture of inclusivity and acceptance to all people, and something that many of us adults are playing catch up on. But I'm really grateful for the emphasis on pride each year here in Lakewood, and among the many important reasons to celebrate this, I think just that powerful reminder that the fight against discrimination is ongoing, and it's something we have to remind ourselves about from time to time. Thank you.
Right. Any other? I'll just add, we do have quite a few folks signed in to speak on this in what has become quite a tradition. And former Council President O'Malley, who was himself a member of the LGBT community, would always comment when we would do this every year that it wasn't always the case that it was a 7-0 vote, or that it was assumed that Lakewood would proudly fly this flag. It was something that had to be fought for, and I'm sure when we have our I see Senator Antonio in the audience, who was Council Member Antonio at one point, will give us more of that history. But it started as a gesture, and then we ended up with folks elected from the LGBT community, which has also become an important tradition for Lakewood. So it's not just about, it's important for us to express our values through our city speech, through the flag, but it goes beyond that of providing some hope and some encouragement that can lead to actual inclusion and change in our government. So always excited to see this. Thank you, Mayor George, for bringing it forward. It is important that we see it from both the legislative and administrative side in our community. And I will just say another word about allyship as well. And I know Councilwoman Striebig wanted to emphasize that point this year, that if no one knows you're an ally, you aren't. So it's important that we are all doing the work, not just saying that what we believe when it's safe for us to say what we believe. We need to say it all the time and show up and do the work to protect our LGBTQI neighbors and celebrate them, not just protect, but celebrate. Pride started as a riot, but is also a time to celebrate. Okay, with that, we do have quite a few folks signed in to speak. But first, let me go ahead and finish off, because we were on the communication, not the resolution itself. So we have a motion and a second to receive and file the communication. So all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. And let's go ahead and move on to the resolution itself.
Item 12, Resolution 2026-30, a resolution recognizing June 2026 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer Questioning, Intersex, Asexual plus Pride Month.
A move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. And now I will turn to our public comment, since most of us have already expressed our opinions up here. So we'll start with, let's start with Senator Antonio and House and Minority Leader Antonio.
Thank you. My name's Nikki Antonio. I live in Bell Avenue, and I am the state senator and minority leader for the Senate and proudly represent Lakewood in Senate District 23. I'm going to start by saying I'm really happy it's not full in here tonight. It's kind of full. But you're absolutely right. The very first time that the Mayor Madeline Kane, decided that the city would fly the pride flag, this room was packed. There was standing room only. The majority of people were upset that Lakewood would take this move to do this. That was in somewhere between, I think it was 2002. I actually, at the time, was not a city council person. I was actually the assistant to the mayor for community relations. And I spend a lot of time having folks in my office telling me why it was such a problem that the city would do this. It was the very first time that the city of Lakewood received massive emails, blasts, from across the country, because it became a national story that the city of Lakewood was going to fly the pride flag during the month of June. You know, we got through that. We moved through it. We moved around it. And over the years, we have evolved to where we are today, which is a wonderful thing. We have members of the LGBTQ community represented on city council, also serving as your senator. We have folks who are taking the initiative to talk about what pride means to them. And we have a mayor that continues to take the stand that when we say the Pledge of Allegiance and we say liberty and justice for all, in the city of Lakewood, it really means for all. But just like it took a long time for us to get there, and I appreciate the fact that we're talking about allyship front and center, because when any marginalized minority group strives to have equal rights, strives for civil rights, they can't do it alone. We can't do it alone. We have to work side by side with allies, with the people who are not part of the community, but understand how important it is that we are all community. And so I want to thank you all. I want to thank the mayor for doing, for bringing this forward again this year. Every year that it seems like maybe it's just, oh yeah, that thing we do every year is a good year for that. But it's also incredibly important, especially in this time in the world where the LGBTQ community is under attack, where people are desperately trying to find others to be able to be frightened of. And it is even more important that we talk about how all of us make up a community, every single person in it, no matter how you worship or don't worship at all, who you love, who you identify, how you identify, where you come from. All those things matter only when they separate us instead of we celebrate the richness that all of the diversity has. Emma Lazarus was the first one that said, we are not all free until all of us are free. Martin Luther King advanced that saying and put it forward, so did Maya Angelou. But I think it's really important for us, and Emmylou Hammer was also one that quoted that. She was a civil rights activist. It's important for us to realize that it takes all of us working together to celebrate, and celebrate Pride Month as well. So thank you again very much. I'm excited that some of the young people are here today, and honestly, that's what I always think about. They are watching us. Councilman, you said, for your children, it's like, rainbow bracelets, where, yeah, everybody is different and we love it and we celebrate. That is a wonderful thing. We just got to get everybody there. So thank you again for doing this today, and thanks for the work every day.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, next I'm going to take Chuck Johnson.
Hello there. Thank you for having me. Council, Mayor, Senator. My name is Chuck Johnson. I'm on the advisory board for PFLAG in Cleveland. PFLAG Cleveland chapter is a local chapter of the national organization PFLAG, and our organization is a nonprofit that strives to support, provide education and advocacy for the LGBT community, specifically for family and friends. When parents have a child that comes out to them as being LGBTQ+, we provide education and support for wherever they are in that process. Some people come out of very strict backgrounds that maybe don't embrace the LGBT community, but we help them find that, because ultimately they seek us out because they are parents or family that are trying to support their loved ones. And to speak about allyship, you know, as a cisgendered white man who has a trans daughter, it's important for people, you know, that, you know, it's kind of boring people like me, stand up and say the things that are correct, because you're right, it is the advocacy of those not affected by the marginalization that help us move things forward. So I would like to thank you all for, again, showing your willingness to support all of us in the community, because it is not just, you know, specific members of the LGBT community. It is their families, their friends, their neighbors, the people you work with. We're all one big family, and we have to take care of each other. So we are not free unless all of us are free. So thank you very much for this proclamation. We appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Next, and I apologize if I misread anyone's writing here. Correct me when you come up. So Jess, thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Council President, Council, Mayor, Senator Antonio, for your great leadership. And the history here in this moment is not lost on us. I'm Dr. Jess Sellers. I'm a licensed psychologist. All of my career was in promoting college student mental health. I was director of the counseling services at Case Western Reserve for 34 years. And together with a social worker, soon to be on our staff at Case Western Reserve in 1985, a woman who had the courage to say, I have a gay son. And together, she and I decided that we needed to have a PFLAG Cleveland chapter here in the city. And it wasn't easy. And if you think back to that time, we had a president who wouldn't utter the word gay, let alone AIDS. We had adversaries against us, and it was really frightening for Jane Daroff, our co-founder, to even go on Channel 5, I think it was, to say, I'm proud of my gay son. And so that then started this movement of creating a chapter here exclusively all about volunteers, where we don't have any paid members. And I'm going to say a few more things about our support group, and then our treasurer, Art Thompson, is going to tell you a bit more too. But our support group is facilitated by professionals. I'm one of them. And we do it pro bono because we care about not just the parents, but our community, and hoping to change the community. And indeed, I think PFLAG has done that, and we're really proud of this organization as it has grown. It's not unusual for us to have 40, sometimes close to 50 people in the room at Trinity Cathedral. And we're now online as well. So people, a transgender daughter in California can be in the room virtually with her mother, who is, had at one point struggled a little bit in acceptance. We work diligently to bring families together when they're in conflict or strife, and we help move them from that to acceptance, and maybe even to love and advocacy. I'm going to pause here. Art Thompson.
Thank you. Mayor George, City Council members, Senator Antonio. My name is Art Thompson. I've been with PFLAG Cleveland for 30 years, and I'm also the person who signed in Jess, making it difficult to read his name, so sorry about that. I'll tell you a little bit more about PFLAG. We're out in the community on a regular basis to provide education in corporate settings and community events. Since 2014, we have awarded 25 scholarships to undergraduate and graduate students, and each year we present a community award to a deserving individual or organization. In 2025, we presented our community award to the Cleveland Public Library in appreciation of their partnership with PFLAG. That partnership entailed placing LGBTQ affirming pamphlets and booklets in the main library at Cleveland Public Library and each of their 27 branches. And our goal in 2026 is to extend that collaboration to other Northeast Ohio libraries, including the Lakewood Public Library. And finally, I just want to applaud the City of Lakewood for passage of this resolution. I was born and raised in Lakewood on Nicholson Avenue, and it really makes me feel proud that my hometown is at the forefront and taking a lead in support of the LGBTQ+ community. Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
Thank you.
And then in terms of advocacy, the council got this button and this postcard. And it's our effort to honor a couple from Lakewood, the Stromans. Some of you may know or recall Joyce and Bob Stroman, Reverend Stroman. They were advocates very early on for LGBTQ+ equality in our community. And they were also PFLAG members. But Joyce told the story to our PFLAG group one time that whenever she met a store clerk or someone in a restaurant serving her, or an incidental kind of connection with individual, particularly young folks, she would ask this question: are you registered to vote? You know, your vote matters. And so in honor of them and in dedication to them and to a great Lakewood couple, we decided to ask their adult children to write this statement on the back of the card. And PFLAG members across Cleveland will be going out and asking random people, just like Joyce did, are you registered to vote, and giving them this postcard. It's as easy as pointing your camera to this QR code to get ready to vote in November. So thank you again to the council, to the council president, the mayor. We really appreciate this recognition.
Thank you. All right, and see, I also have one more person signed in on this topic. M. Zato?
Hello, my name is Mark Zabo from Rocky River, Ohio, so just across the river. I just wanted to come out and speak in support of this resolution. I'm both a member of the military community and the LGBT+ community, and I get to see a bunch of memes all over Facebook, Twitter, all the other different type of social medias, kind of pitting the military and veteran community against the LGBT community. One of the main bases is that the military community only gets 2 days, LGBT community gets 1 full month. I find this to be an insult as a veteran, not as a person, well, kind of as a member of the LGBT community, but as a veteran, I find it insulting because the military community, we get 3 months. April is the month of the military child. May is the month for those currently serving, and November is the month for veterans. So I find it insulting. I find it as a backhanded insult that these people don't know that and that they are basically insulting the veteran community. But it also kind of erases a couple of folks who are members of the LGBT community and who have sacrificed their everything. Major Alan Rogers, Sergeant Donna Johnson, Corporal Andrew Wilfart, and Major Adriana Vorderbergen. We will all honor those this coming Monday for Memorial Day. There are many folks who have sacrificed everything. In the LGBT community, we don't know all of them because many have served in silence. This current administration is putting transgender folks back in the closet, kicking out everybody who has been open, so that for a person who is transgender to serve, who is capable of serving, they have to do it in the closet. Thank you so much for this resolution. Our community needs it. Not just the LGBT community, but all communities. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. Do we have anyone else who wanted to speak on this topic? That's everyone I think I have signed in, but if there's anyone else who would like to speak on this topic, you're welcome to do so. No? Okay. All right. Thank you all who spoke out and participated tonight. We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution, anticipating that it will pass. After it passes, we will do a photo down front. We invite anyone who would like to be in that picture to come up and join us for that picture, and we'll have a ceremonial copy of the resolution to present to our partners at PFLAG. And we appreciate you being here. I know personally, one of my, well, actually my best friend, that how important PFLAG was in his journey in college a couple years ago when he came out. So, so I know firsthand how important that work is, and I appreciate it. All right, any further comments from council before we move on? All right, so we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. And we'll do a photo down front. All are invited who wish to come up.
Item number 1, report from Public Works and Sustainability Committee meeting held May 11th, 2026.
Councilmember Bullock.
Thank you, Madam President. The Public Works and Sustainability Committee met on May 11 to discuss Ordinance 25-2026, which authorizes an agreement with the Help Foundation for operation of food concessions at Lakewood Park and Madison Park. Chief Program Officer of Help Foundation, Allison Brisky, was present along with Director Mahoney to answer committee members' questions. Topics discussed included the details about Help's agreement with the city, menu selection and healthy options, and also Help Foundation's mission and operations and staffing. Ms. Brisky confirmed that the operating concessions at city pools has been a positive experience for the individuals involved who are receiving paid training and experience as part of HELP's vocational training and services program. Committee members agreed that this collaboration between the city and the HELP Foundation is a positive and mutually beneficial arrangement and voiced support for sharing more of HELP's story with the public. Committee members then requested copies of 2 proposals submitted to the city for the operating agreement so that we had the context of the details of the alternatives. The committee unanimously voted to favorably refer Ordinance 25-2026 back to the full council for adoption. And And that concludes this report. I've got a written report that I'd like to move that be included in the record of the meeting.
Great.
Thank you.
Sure. So we'll just move to receive and file the oral report as well as the written.
Thank you. Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item number 2, Ordinance 25, 2026, an ordinance to take effect immediately, authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Help Foundation, Inc. for the operation of food concessions at Lakewood Park and Madison Park pursuant to Section 15508 of the Codified Ordinances.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 3, report from Committee of the Whole regarding meeting held May 11th, 2026.
Dear colleagues, Committee of the Whole met May 11th for a 2-hour retreat-style meeting where the committee set forth plans to identify and discuss its priorities ahead of the 2027 budget. The goal of the retreat was for Council to identify priorities early so that the administration may consider them and incorporate them into the 2027 budget. A wide range of topics were brought forward for discussion, and Council members were able to identify areas of overlap and collaboration. Members were asked to work individually in small groups of no more than 3 council members and in collaboration with directors and community stakeholders to complete and submit a 1-page worksheet for each priority by June 1st. Following the receipt of the worksheets, I intend to submit a communication to the June 15th docket and hold hearings for further discussion among council and the administration. Move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 4, report from Committee of the Whole regarding meeting held May 18, 2026.
Colleagues, Committee of the Whole met earlier this evening to consider the Charter Review Commission or the charter proposed charter amendments. Most of our conversation was around the options around ranked choice voting. We talked about essentially 4 different options. Option 1 being Ordinance 21, 2026, which would put forth an amendment to adopt ranked choice voting for voters to vote directly on adopting ranked choice voting into the charter. Option 2, Ordinance 27, 2026, which is how the Charter Review Commission originally recommended to put a charter amendment where, if passed, Council would have the option of adopting ranked choice voting through ordinance or resolution. A potential third option of placing it on the charter that it would only go into effect if Senate Bill 63 was repealed. And option 4, which would be to wait until after potentially the November 2026 election to allow to see any shifts in the legislative and legal landscape and add more time for public dialogue and engagement prior to charter vote. We had a robust discussion, and we're joined by the Cuyahoga Board of Elections Director Tony Perlotti. Council members had opportunity to discuss the pros and cons of each option, some of the details of implementation, and we discussed the timeline and process that would be needed. With the remaining elements, the remaining ordinances still in committee regarding salaries of elected officials, council appointment process that are connected to the ranked choice voting ones, we didn't touch on as we didn't reach a decision on the ranked choice voting, but we did briefly discuss the ward redistricting ordinance 19-2026. That one we amended to include language that would allow the recommendations of the Planning Commission to come back to Council, and if Council were to take no action, they would go into effect as though Council had taken action. This is language similar to what the language is around Civil Service Commission recommendations around Council salaries. All of those ordinances remain in committee, and we will continue our conversation at a future date. I will move to receive and file that oral report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam President?
Councilman Bullock.
Just really, for the previous Committee of the Whole report that you made a second ago, but wanted to say thank you for the systematic and organized work. You're, as you alluded before, keeping a lot of trains running. That is going to increase the effectiveness and the throughput and the efficiency of council members in our various initiatives, some of which are individual, but many of them have common ground. And to Director Mahoney, we're making good on your invitation dating back to the last budget process to begin the council budget priorities process much earlier in the process. I think kind of we heard you, it clicked a little better, and so now council members are working in that vein and also putting together a systematic forum that will provide the beginning of a nice foundational point. So we look forward to more discussions in partnership with the administration. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion on the motion to receive and file the report? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 5, Ordinance 27, 2026, an ordinance to take effect immediately, submitting to the electors of the City of Lakewood an amendment to the Third Amended Charter of the City of Lakewood in order to allow council the option of implementing ranked choice voting.
Move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Just to clarify, this is on the docket because we have of the 4 options I just discussed in the report, this is one of those options. This allows it to get onto second reading so that once we conclude our work in Committee of the Whole, if either of these are referred out of Committee of the Whole for adoption, it will have already been on second reading like the others. So this is sort of a procedural vote at this time. All right, so we have a motion and a second to defer. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 6, substitute ordinance 24, 2026, an ordinance to take effect immediately to approve the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes, codified ordinances, and to provide for the publication of such new matter.
So this is just our quarterly regular ordinance to codify the things that have already been passed, essentially print them. So it's been on, this is our 3rd reading, so I'm going to move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 7, report from Councilmember Streebig regarding the April 26, 2026 meeting of Lakewood Youth Council.
Councilmember Streebig.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, before the meeting of the Lakewood Youth Council was called, Dr. Kathleen McGorry from the Lakewood chapter of the League of Women Voters spoke about the school levy, primary elections, and the importance of voting. The meeting was called to order by Mel Diemert, and the minutes were approved. The Environmental Committee is in contact with the Tree Advisory Board to better understand more about trees on tree lawns. The Mental Health Committee is working on surveys to better understand youth interest and interest in youth band performances. The Public Outreach Committee is working on a survey about biking. We had a lengthy discussion about the difference between problem solving and identifying problems. One problem we began to discuss is the need for young people to be together to encourage and support each other and build confidence outside of school. The primary function of this Youth Advisory Board is to inform the City Council of young people's needs, not solve them. It is a learning process to identify needs rather than solve those needs, as we are all naturally geared to do that. With continued focus and refocusing on advising, we will move in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 8, report from Councilmember Streebig regarding the April 21st, 2026 meeting of the Community Recreation and Education Commission.
Councilmember Streebig.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, the Lakewood Community Recreation and Education Commission met on April 21st, 2026. Public comment was led by Cesar Vargas about the need for community handball courts. Coordinator Leslie Favor-Krogman reported that the youth and adult basketball, volleyball, and swimming programs were finished, and the spring and summer registrations were beginning. There are over 100 different things for residents to do in this new season. The Purple and Gold Classic was successful again this year, with teams from each elementary school participating. Field maintenance is underway, and youth soccer teams are taking advantage of open fields in Cleveland. The Commission voted on and approved a nomination for the Baseball and Softball Association. That was Mike Sambrook for treasurer. Thank you.
Thank you. Move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Just like to thank Councilwoman Strubig for keeping us informed and always being prepared with those reports. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 9, communication from Building Commissioner Parmalee regarding amendment to Resolution 2025-71.
Commissioner Parmalee. Oh, make sure you hit the button there. Sorry. Thank you.
Bueller, everybody's got me. Members of council, council president, error was brought to my attention regarding resolution 2025-71. It's that master fee schedule. In our original fee schedule, we had the language, the base fee for each electrical permit shall be $30, to which the following should be added: subsequent permit fee. This was omitted from the fee schedule, so I'm asking to have the electrical permit language modified to include the mentioned language and add the $30 base fee back into the electrical. Easy peasy.
Thank you. So this was in there before,
Yeah.
and then it just got omitted when we were updating the others.
Yeah, like we all looked at it, I don't know how many times.
Sure, that happens.
There's always one thing.
Sure. Okay, thank you. I'll move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Vice President Baker?
For what it's worth, I'm happy to support the ordinance that's pending, or that we'll get to next, just to keep Commissioner Parmalee and his building inspectors doing the things they got to do. So.
Thank you. Okay, so we're on the communication right now. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 10, Resolution 2025-71A, a resolution to take effect immediately to amend Resolution 2025-71, adopted March 2nd, 2026, to include a base fee for electric permits.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion?
Madam President?
Councilman Bullock.
Mr. Parmalee, can you just repeat very clearly where on the chart, maybe on the second page there, where the proposal is to add back base fee?
Yeah, they'd be right down on the bottom of the document.
On the left?
Screen. Yeah, stay and just add the base fee back in.
So it's $30 no matter what, and then add the amounts in the center column. That's not an increase. That's just a restoration.
It's not
of
an increase. No.
Your normal and customary practice.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, on the motion to adopt, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 13, communication from Public Works Director Gordon regarding 2026 Community Recycling Awareness Grant.
Director Gordon.
Thank you. Dear President Keppel and members of City Council, the City's Division of Refuse and Recycling, in partnership with the Planning Department, was awarded $6,000 from the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District's 2026 Community Recycling Awareness Grant Program. This grant will be used to support the design, installation, and advertising costs for recycling education billboards in Lakewood. A 24-week-long billboard campaign spanning one full-size board and 2 junior posters will be created to encourage those traveling to learn about proper recycling practices. The one full-size board will be located at Detroit, east of West Clifton, and the 2 junior posters will be located at 12506 Detroit, west of Cove Avenue. The billboards will include information about which materials are and are not recyclable. The graphic information used will be similar to the recycling education stickers and magnets distributed in past years. The end goal being reduced contamination, continued education of current recycling best practices, and use of several reminder strategies to encourage correct recycling management. Pursuant to Lakewood Codified Ordinance Section 111.14B, this letter serves as notice of our intention to accept these funds. Please let me know if you have any further questions.
Thank you. Move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Thank you, Director Gordon, for this update and for the money. We've talked many times before about the importance of reducing contamination in our recycling, that I think a lot of us over the years have been guilty of wish cycling, where we just put it in there and hope that it's recyclable because we want it to be, but a lot of things are not anymore, and that actually makes it worse for our recycling stream. So it's important to have this education. We appreciate the effort. Any further discussion? Hearing none, on the motion to receive and file the communication, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 14, communication from Principal Planner Nocta regarding application to the State of Ohio through ODNR for the NatureWorks grant program.
Dr. Byington.
Thank you. Dear President Keppel and members of Council, attached to this letter was a resolution authorizing the Planning Department to apply for financial assistance from the State of Ohio through the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for the Beck's Pool renovation project. ODNR provides funding for public outdoor recreation purposes through the NatureWorks grant program. NatureWorks can provide up to $150,000 in reimbursement for qualifying park improvements with a 25% match requirement. Beck's Pool has been identified as a high priority item due to the overall age of the structure, increasing maintenance requirements, and growing obsolescence of components and features. The pool is heavily used and is a prized asset for both residents and visitors. The initial estimate for this project, obtained during the RFP process and based on the previous pool renovation, which was Foster Pool, has a projected cost of between $4 to $6 million. As we begin planning, this resolution serves as a commitment to overall project funding that will improve our grant application scoring. Competing for this program will help defer a portion of the overall cost and realize the execution of this critical project. The Departments of Public Works and Planning have begun work with SIXMO, the same consultant that executed the Foster Pool renovation project. SIXMO has been provided the Madison Park Master Plan, and we intend to execute a similar public engagement process as used in the Foster Pool project for residents to participate in the Beck's design process. The deadline to submit a resolution of support for this application is tentatively set for July 1st, 2026. I respectfully request approval of this resolution on first reading. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move to receive and file the communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. Yep, sorry. Councilman Bixenstein.
Thank you, President Keppel. Just wanted to say thank you for the continued emphasis on the park and on the improvements. I don't know if it was a coincidence or not, but last week it just so happened that the same day that the public engagement launched digitally, the Beck's Pool also got filled, and I thought that was an impressive, whether coincidence or not, it was an impressive display of cross-department collaboration. So thank you very much.
Sure, totally planned. So well done.
Thank you, Director Gordon.
Yeah. All right. Any further comment on the communication? Hearing none, on the motion to receive and file the communication, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 15, Resolution 2026-31, a resolution to take effect immediately authorizing the Mayor, Director of Planning and Development, Director of Public Works, or City Engineer to submit an application for the NatureWorks grant through the Ohio Department of Natural Resources to execute any and all agreements necessary to accept an award and to obligate funds required to complete the project to become eligible for reimbursement under the grant program.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 16, liquor permit, QAJ Enterprise LLC at 14,000 Detroit Avenue.
Director Vargo, I don't think we have this one, do we?
That's correct. Council President will need to defer.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so we will move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. All right, so we are at public comment. We do have quite a few e-comments on a variety of different issues. Those e-comments will be included in the public record, and all council members should have them in their email to read them as well. And then I'm going to go through the sign-in sheet. When I call your name, thank you. When I call your name, if you can please come up to the microphone, push the button, or if it should be green and when you speak, so make sure it's green. Push the button if it isn't. And then state your name, if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes. You address your comments to the chair, that's me, and avoid personalities. All right, so with that, up first is Jared Clark. Push the button.
Thanks. Home rule is at risk in Lakewood. City Council understands this well with immigration enforcement bills in Ohio State House and the growing consolidation of federal power over states and cities. It's a pressing issue more than ever. As a progressive city unburdened by the corporate interests that our larger neighbor struggles with, Lakewood stands in a unique position for taking meaningful action against these developments. City Council saw it the same way when you passed resolutions protecting the freedom of gender expression and opposing ISIS spread into local policing. However, this model is incomplete. In just the last month, we've seen multiple cities and towns in Ohio come to the realization that their flock safety cameras were commandeered by outside departments for the sake of assisting federal immigration enforcement. Despite Dayton's explicit policy not to assist in ICE investigations, its flock's cameras were searched thousands of times by other departments in relation to immigration. Dayton's right to home rule was violated by Flock's system. The same thing happened again in Shaker Heights, and now possibly in Cleveland. It has probably already happened here, and we just don't know it yet. Of course, Flock doesn't care. Despite offering a system to block incoming searches based on their reason, Flock no longer requires its clients to log a reason for their searches, meaning a search that violates local policy could come through and we would never even know. Flock's reasoning for not providing adequate safeguards is that they don't police the police. The result is a race to the bottom. Lakewood's policy becomes only as good as the least trustworthy agency on Flock's network. The first step that we can take, and the step that Dayton took earlier this month to reclaiming its right to home rule, is getting rid of Flock. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Ryan Ream.
Hi, Ryan Ream, 1409 Marlowe Avenue, number 4. Good evening, City Council, Mayor George, and the rest of the gang. As you know from my previous comments here, I'm strongly in favor of policies that protect Lakewood citizens and hold those who would break the law accountable. But sometimes in our effort to protect our city, we can go too far and ultimately end up with some bad bedfellows. One of those, to be specific, is flock safety. There are many reasons why we should question Flock's presence in our community, but I will focus on one tonight, and that is Flock's troubling record of its service being abused by both individuals and governmental agencies. With Flock, agencies are incentivized to share recordings and data. According to the ACLU Massachusetts, when an agency shares the data, Flock allows them to tap into a national network of data and recordings. This quid pro quo is troubling because it allows other agencies to access our data and potentially to do so for nefarious reasons. A 2026 Institute of Justice article points out that the last few years, there have been at least 16 cases of people abusing Flock's system to stalk loved ones, exes, or even strangers. Imagine how giddy former Rocky River police officer Michael Bernhardt, who was recently convicted of 3 counts of unauthorized use of Ohio law enforcement gateway, would be to have the high-quality imaging and AI functions of Flock to further violate the rights of his victims, some of which were minors. I will read you another egregious example from a 2025 letter from the House of Representatives Committee on Oversight and Government Reform to Garrett Langley, CEO of Flock. Recently, local authorities in Texas reportedly used Flock's automatic license plate reader technology to conduct a nationwide search for a woman they claimed had a self-administered abortion in Texas. As part of this search, Texas law enforcement appears to have reviewed footage from over 83,000 automatic license plate reader cameras, including cameras in Washington and Illinois, where abortion is lawfully protected and is a basic right. This is summarized as a gross misuse and abuse of surveillance technology. In regards to ICE and governmental overreach, although Flock's policies prohibit federal agencies from using its data for immigration enforcement, in practice, no effective safeguards exist, since the company repeatedly refuses to remove law enforcement agencies from Flock's network or cancel contracts in the event of violations. Furthermore, although the Department of Justice has historically allowed federal law enforcement agencies to utilize automatic license plate readers in investigations, DOJ has also expressed concern with the way such technology could be used to intrude on law-abiding citizens. For example, in 2017, during President Trump's first term, DOJ published guidance emphasizing that while While law enforcement and related justice enforcement entities increasingly rely on automatic license plate reader technology, individual privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties must also be vigorously protected. Using flock data to track and surveil immigrants in violation of flock's own policy is a clear failure to vigorously protect individual privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties. With these reasons in mind, I would strongly urge the administration to break the contract with Flock and focus on a smarter and cheaper solution to keeping Lakewood safe. On a lighter note, I will use the remainder of my time to spread Bike Lakewood propaganda and just say that coming up May 28th, I believe it's a Thursday, is going to be another one of our social rides. I think around 6 or 7 o'clock, 5 to 10 miles, 12 mile per hour average pace, a comfortable pace, and we'll stop at a local business. So would love to see anybody who's listening, anyone here in the audience, anyone in the administration or council there. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have next is Joey Arfino.
How we doing? Good evening. My name is Joey Artino. I live on Delaware Avenue. I'm a homeowner, a business owner, and a member of the Lakewood Chamber of Commerce. I moved here from Cleveland, where I spent 20 years specifically to escape the quality of life problems I could never get away from there. Lakewood delivered on that promise, mostly. For the last 5 years, one property has undone it, and I'm here tonight because every system I've been told to trust has failed me. 14227 Delaware Avenue is a 2-unit Airbnb. Each unit sleeps 6 people. The owner lives in Seattle. He's not a neighbor. He's not a Lakewood resident. He's a remote investor running a motel business in a residentially zoned neighborhood. He's pricing it like one. Both units combined rent for less than a single room at the budget motels on Clifton and Lake. Do the math. Who do those price points attract and why? The results have been exactly what you'd expect. Noise, parties, fights, suspected drug activity, suspected prostitution. Grass that goes uncut for weeks, but that's little. We've watched the block deteriorate for 5 years because of this single property. 63. That's the number of police calls to this single address confirmed by a patrol officer, excuse the pronunciation, Dworski. Thank you. Dworkowski. 63 calls in a 5-year span. One residential property in Lakewood. This isn't a neighbor dispute. This is a sustained documented drain on the city's public safety resources, paid for by Lakewood taxpayers, myself included. Here's what 5 years of doing the right thing looks like. Police say keep calling. It'll become a nuisance property. We call. Nothing changes. The building department says call the police. Narcotics says call the building department. The owner ignores us. Airbnb ignores us. Our past ward councilman, Jason Shackner, I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that right. Then Tom Bullock, Brian Evans, forgive me, we haven't met in person, but we've met through email. This city has no framework to address any of this. I know it's underway, but we have no framework currently. Meanwhile, neighborhoods suffer. This is a serious problem, and we're dropping the ball. We've been set in circles for 5 years. All the while, the owner keeps collecting revenue from Seattle. We live with the consequences on Delaware Avenue in Lakewood. My family's seriously considering leaving Lakewood. That's heartbreaking to say out loud because I love this city. I chose this city. I invested in it as a homeowner and as a business owner. But I can't ask my family to keep living like this indefinitely. It's happening to us. It's happening to others. The police have confirmed. City officials have confirmed. Lakewood cannot afford to lose invested, stable, community-minded residents like us. This is not a new or complicated problem. Cities across the country have solved it. San Francisco requires Airbnb hosts to live in their property, full stop. Chicago allows short-term rentals only if the address is the owner's primary residence. Los Angeles has made second homes and investment properties non-rentable via Airbnb for exactly this reason. What's stopping us? Who are we protecting? Here's the one thing that should matter the most to this council. Shaker Heights, our east side counterpart, has already banned short-term rentals in properties the owner doesn't live in. This isn't a radical idea. This is what the city next door is already doing. Or not, you know what I mean. If we care about community, the time is now, yesterday really. Cleveland just passed short-term rental legislation. It's kind of weak. Lakewood is behind. The question is how much longer we are willing to wait. Tonight I'm asking for two things. First, 14227 Delaware needs to be formally designated as a nuisance property right now. 63 calls is more than enough. The owner needs real consequences. It's been 5 years. Second, I know this council, excuse me, I didn't mean to yell. Second, I know this council began work on a short-term rental ordinance last year. I'm asking that you finish it. Require registration, require owner occupancy, set occupancy limits, tie a license to the behavior. The model exists in a dozen cities, including Shaker Heights. What's it going to take to get this across the finish line? Whose interests are we protecting? Residential neighborhoods are for residents. I didn't sign up to live next door to a motel. I don't pay Lakewood taxes to live next door to a motel. Don't make us leave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes.
if it's all right.
Sure. We have some other folks on the same topic, but so I don't know if we wanted to allow them to speak, but if you want to.
Well, okay, a couple quick responses. First, thank you for speaking, sir. I'm sorry to hear it. Please do not leave. It's our job to get it right so that you don't have to do that. So that's what we got to take on. Maybe Councilman Evans might want to talk a little later. We happen to talk with a number of people here just in the recent days about reintroducing that ordinance. You're correct. We have to put it back on the docket and be thoughtful. A member of the administration and I are going to talk tomorrow. But Mayor, maybe we could work, or Law Director, we could work together on the chronic nuisance ordinance that's in place and has been for years, which to me seems to apply, as the gentleman described. You know, we can partner a little bit on that. That's a matter of enforcement. So there's two layers. One is using the law that's already on the books, which would at least partially address what we're talking about, and then proposing a new and thoughtful framework that is feasible to implement to address the fundamental issue of how does our community address short-term rentals or not. So thank you for coming to speak tonight on this important issue.
Thank you. Yes, and I'll just also mention that thank you for speaking. That when we had our council retreat talking about priorities, this was discussed as a priority for this year among several council members. And I'll also just note, a year or two ago, we passed, it's been a little while, we passed an ordinance to require licensure for homes that were moving from private ownership into being rentals, that they needed inspection. And I remember at the time asking if that would include short-term rentals, and that the law department thought that it should include that. So I'd be curious to go and do some searching on the sites to see which homes in Lakewood are listed on the short-term rental sites and which ones have had that inspection as well. So that's just another thing that comes to mind. But thank you for your comments. And we do have someone else signed in to speak on this topic, and we do have e-comments on this topic as well. But first, I want to go to Caitlin Tuhig.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for listening. My name is Caitlin Tuhig. I also live on Delaware. I'm a clinical mental health counselor who works in crisis. I'm very close with a lot of the people in this room. Most importantly, I'm a mother, but I have been a Lakewood resident for the last 13 years. The pride that Lakewood has earned in itself is being compromised by the greed of individuals. The last several years of this non-locally owned short-term rental across the street have caused havoc in my neighborhood that is no longer tolerable. My neighbors and I pride ourselves on the close-knit block we've invested in, some of us for over 30 years. I've been raising my family here for about a dozen, and I'm shocked at how much chaos and crime the city has continued to allow this stranger to bring to our block. Our children have seen sex work, physical and verbal fights, late into the night, drug use and drug deals, innumerable moments of reckless behavior, lack of parenting, obnoxious drinking, domestic squabbles, all from the comfort of their front porch or while they're on their way to school. While always prompt in their response, Lakewood PD has been limited in their legal options. As a licensed professional counselor who works in a local police department, I'm aware of the limitations that the officers have in these moments. So preventing these individuals from continuing to make money at the expense of my family's safety is the responsibility of this council. We need to stop unsafe conditions that these non-local short-term rentals create for the whole community, and this issue requires this council's immediate attention. As Saturday night, the police were called to the Airbnb across our street 3 separate times by multiple homes to address the substance use, partying in the streets, and fight on the front lawn at 3 a.m. Later in the morning, they were attempting to break back into the rental they had locked themselves out of. We are the only homes on the block with school children. We cannot lament about declining enrollment and school safety and then not address basic neighborhood safety of those children. We cannot proudly call ourselves a city of homes and then allow a property owner to use his Lakewood dwelling as a cash grab, rather than as a home like my family and my neighbors do. Please amend the regulations that allows for out-of-town renters to continue to make money with no regard for the comfort or safety of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. That is everyone I have signed in to speak. Did anyone else wish to speak on this topic or any other topic? No? Okay. I'll just add, in regards to the short-term rentals, like I said, we do have, we're limited that only 3 council members can be working on legislation at any given time because of sunshine laws. So, but when we had our retreat, that was one of the topics that many of us were interested in working on, because we do hear from other residents. I hear from residents too who are concerned about, who see both sides of when my parents come into town, there's no room in my house, and so it's great to have an Airbnb a quality Airbnb locally that they can use, but also don't want parties on their street late into the night. We want respectful usage of those properties when they exist. There's also a concern about affordable housing, and that's something that this council has also identified as an extremely high priority for us to address, and that the number of short-term rentals can reduce the number of rental units and housing on the market, which adds to the shortage and can add to rental pricing. So we are certainly very concerned about these issues and want to be thoughtful about what we do with our legislation, but it is certainly on mind. And I also do want to address, with regard to Flock, same thing, some of these concerns. I know I've been following some of the media that's been covering some of the stories about our neighbors that use Flock, and it's certainly been of concern of this body, as we've talked about with issues with immigration. We talked tonight about protecting our LGBT neighbors, just so many reasons to be mindful of how surveillance is used in our community. I appreciate everyone's comments tonight, recognizing that that this isn't an issue of our Lakewood police misusing it. It's an issue of how our data is potentially shared, and that is something that we do have a meeting coming up with the administration, again, 3 of us on council, and to talk through some of these concerns because we share them and want to be thoughtful about this. All right, so with that, I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. Last chance, public comment, anyone? All right, and if not, I'm going to go to council members. Vice President Baker.
Yes, and thank you for the comments on the short-term rental issue. I know my 2 colleagues, Councilman Evans and Councilman Bullock, are working on it. I'm happy to work on it as well. I know the building commissioner has expressed an interest to help craft something, and I did speak with Shaker Heights, Kyle Cruson, who they recently implemented their essentially ban of it unless you live on the property, and he raised a really good point that I hadn't considered, which is that not only are there 300 less roughly housing units that could help inventory, which would bring down rents generally for people living. But it's also, they're not paying income taxes. They're not residents of Lakewood, you know, so you have to weigh those things. And in lost revenue, that's, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars that could go to hire a police officer, a building inspector, or something like that. So I think we have to be mindful of this approach, but I'm committed to working with my colleagues to come up with some regulatory regime this year. Now, it's probably not as fast as you'd like because the deliberative process, when only 3 of us can get together and talk about it and work with the administration and then pump it out, takes a little bit of time. But know that I think about this issue as if it was next to me and my family and what I would feel like if that was happening. So I'm committed to working on it, and also on the flock issue, as Council President said, flock solves crimes, but we need to be mindful of how we share and handle our data. So that's what we're going to meet and talk about. Thanks.
Other council members? All right, other announcements from council members? Councilmember Streebig. Thank you. Other announcements from council members? And announcements from the administration. All right. With that, I have no further business to come before council. Without objection, we are adjourned.